My husband died 5 years ago. Every month, I sent $500 to my in-laws to pay off a debt. One day, my downstairs neighbor told me, "Stop sending them money and look at the security camera." The next day, I checked the recording. The scene that unfolded before me left me frozen. The smell of peeling paint, mixed with the stench of drains that hadn't been cleaned in years, hit me as soon as I turned off the engine of my Vespa at the foot of the stairs. This old tenement building had survived in the heart of Brooklyn for over 70 years, as faded and decrepit as the people who were slowly wasting away inside it. I leaned my burgundy scooter against the corner of the wall, where a red paint mark showed the spot it had occupied for the last 5 years. Today was the 5th of the month, the day that I, Leah, a 2-year-old widow, had to fulfill the obligation of paying my late husband's debt, 5 floors up with no elevator. I adjusted my purse. My hand unconsciously brushed against the overstuffed envelope in the inner pocket. $500. A trivial amount for the rich, but a sixth of my meager salary. The money for Leo's milk, for his tutoring, for his soccer team fees. 5 years ago, so Daniel could go work in the North Dakota oil fields, his parents withdrew their entire retirement savings, a total of $30,000, and gave it to him. The day Daniel died, his mother pointed her finger at me, accusing me that it was my fault her son had to leave home, only to lose his life, leaving them, 2 old people, with empty hands. She forced me to take responsibility for repaying that amount, divided into $500 a month for 5 years. I gritted my teeth and accepted, considering it the last gesture of love for my husband and a way to have peace to raise my son. The staircase was a dark, deep well, barely lit by weak sunbeams filtering through the broken panes of the air shaft window. The echo of my steps resonated on the worn tiles. Click, clack, click. Each step was a dead weight. On the first floor, the super always had his radio on at full blast. On the second, the smell of burnt chili escaped from a shared kitchen. On the third, a young couple argued loudly about the rising Con Ed bill. When I reached the fourth, the silence became almost absolute, and the fifth, where my in-laws lived, was a world apart, of an eerie stillness. I stopped on the 5th-floor landing, wiping the sweat from my brow. My chest felt tight and my heart pounded, not just from the effort, but from the vague sense of unease that always washed over me in front of that iron door painted a blue chipped away by rust. Apartment 504, the home of Daniel's parents. I knocked 3 times with sharp, clear raps. Knock, knock, knock. Silence. I knew they were home. They never went anywhere. Arthur, my father-in-law, suffered from arthritis. Martha, my mother-in-law, always complained of headaches and dizziness. They both lived like shadows in that 600-square-foot apartment, with the blinds down and the door bolted day and night. I knocked again, this time louder. "Dad! Mom! It's Leah!" Almost a minute passed before I heard the shuffling of slippers inside. The sound of the deadbolt sliding was dry, like the creak of an old man's bones. The door opened just a crack, enough for a wrinkled, grumpy face to peer out. It was Martha, my mother-in-law. She was barely over 60 but looked much older. Her eyes, sunken and surrounded by dark circles, always looked around suspiciously, as if she feared someone would steal her soul. She didn't open the door all the way. She kept the security chain on, creating a cold barrier between her world and mine. "Is that you?" Her voice was hoarse, devoid of emotion. "Yes." "Hi, Mom. I've come to bring this month's money." I tried to keep a smile, though the muscles in my face felt stiff. "Oh, give it to me," she said curtly. I hurriedly opened my purse and took out the envelope I had prepared. I offered it with both hands through the narrow opening. "Here's the $500 for this month, so you can buy your medicine." Martha extended a bony hand, veined with blue, and snatched the envelope with the speed of a bird of prey. Without counting it or looking at it, she stuffed it directly into the pocket of her housecoat. The gesture was so automatic and decisive that I felt like a delinquent debtor, not her daughter-in-law. "Is Leo okay?" she asked without looking me in the eye, her gaze shifting to the staircase behind me, as if watching to see if anyone was coming up. "Yes, he's doing great. He keeps asking about his grandparents. This weekend, If you like, I can bring him over to spend the day with you. I've almost finished paying off the debt. I'd like for you to be more comfortable with him." Hearing that, Martha's face soured. She waved her hand nervously. "No, no. Your father's leg is acting up and my head hurts. A child in the house is too much noise. We're not up for that. Finishing the payments is your business. We'll call you when we're feeling better for you to bring him." The same excuse as always. In 5 years, the times little Leo had set foot in that house could be counted on one hand, and each time, after 15 minutes, they would kick us out with some pretext. Well, another time then. I lowered my head, swallowing the bitterness rising in my throat. "Go on, get going. You'll catch a chill in the draft and then it's worse." With that, Martha slammed the door shut. The deadbolt clicked with a final sound. I stood there, staring at the cold, impersonal iron door. Not an invitation to come in, not a glass of water. I pressed my ear to the door, hoping to hear my father-in-law's voice, or at least the sound of the television, any normal noise from an inhabited house, but no. Inside, an absolute silence reigned, a terrifying silence, as if that house were a giant tomb that devoured any sound of life. The wind seeped through the stairwell, chilling my back. I shivered and pulled up the collar of my jacket and turned to go down. My heart was heavy. "Daniel, you left me with this debt. I've almost finished paying it off. Why are your parents still so cold to your son and me?" The question floated in my mind, getting lost in the void of the dark staircase. I didn't know that at the precise moment I turned around, a pair of eyes was watching me through a slightly open blind, a gaze that was not that of an old person, but one that was sharp and calculating. I went down to the tenement courtyard, feeling like I was escaping from an airless basement. The pale yellow evening sun filtered through the branches of the acacia trees, drawing patches of light on the moss-covered tile floor. The atmosphere of the courtyard contrasted with the stillness of the 5th floor. Some kids were playing soccer, shouting at the top of their lungs. Several women sat in circles, cleaning vegetables and gossiping animatedly. I was heading toward my scooter, ready to start it to go pick up my son, when a wrinkled but firm hand grabbed my wrist. "Leah, is that you, honey?" I turned, startled. It was Mrs. Gable. She had been the building's tenant association president, and although she was retired, she still had that air of authority and a taste for knowing everything. She was sitting on a stone bench under an acacia, fanning herself with a piece of cardboard, and she was looking at me intently with narrowed eyes. "Yes. Hi, Mrs. Gable. Getting some fresh air?" I greeted her politely. "Mrs." Gable didn't answer my trivial question. She made me sit next to her and looked around as if she was afraid someone would hear her. Then she leaned into my ear and whispered with an air of mystery, "Have you gone up to pay the debt to those two again?" I was surprised she knew about such a private family matter, but I nodded. Yes, today was the monthly payment. "Mrs." Gable clicked her tongue and shook her head. With an expression of compassion mixed with a certain fear, she lowered her voice even more. "Poor thing. Working like a dog to support those who don't deserve it. Listen to me carefully. Next month, don't give them a single cent." I frowned, not understanding. "Mrs." Gable was known for being a gossip, but she wasn't a bad person who would encourage children to be cruel or not to pay their debts. "Why do you say that? I only have a couple of months left. It's for the $30,000 that Daniel borrowed to go to North Dakota. I have to fulfill my obligation." Her hand squeezed my arm tightly. Her eyes widened, staring at me, and her voice, though trembling, pronounced each syllable with harshness. "They say around here that sometimes the dead aren't so dead." A shiver ran down my spine. I got goosebumps. "Mrs." Gable's words were like a blast of icy air from the great beyond in broad daylight. "What are you saying?" "My husband died 5 years ago. We have the death certificate. We even brought back his ashes." She cut me off with a wave of her hand. "I'm not talking about ghosts. I'm talking about flesh and blood. Haven't you noticed? That apartment is quieter than a church during the day, but around 1 or 2 in the morning, you can hear noises. One night I couldn't sleep. I went out onto my 4th-floor fire escape for a smoke and saw the shadow of a man going up to the 5th. His way of walking seemed very familiar. My heart began to pound. Yes. That way of limping with his shoulder slightly dropped, just like Daniel after he broke his leg in that motorcycle accident. And the strangest thing is that whenever you come to bring the money, that same night or the next, that shadow appears. I stood paralyzed, my mind a blank. Daniel died in a work accident in North Dakota. A representative from the contracting company brought us the urn with his ashes. You must be mistaken. Your eyesight isn't what it used to be. I tried to find a logical explanation, but my own voice trembled. Mrs. Gable gave me a sharp look. I'm old, but I'm not senile. Besides, I saw him. He was wearing a cap pulled down to his eyebrows and a face mask. If he were a thief, he'd be snooping around. But this one took a key out of his pocket and opened the door like it was his own home. If you don't believe me, that's your problem, but listen to me and check it out. On the landing between the 4th and 5th floors, the building just installed a security camera because of the robberies. Ask someone who knows how to get you the recording. With that, Mrs. Gable let go of my arm and continued fanning herself as if nothing had happened. I stood up on shaky legs and walked towards the scooter. My head was a whirlwind. Mrs. Gable's words echoed inside me. They aren't so dead. He limps. He opened the door like it was his home. I put the key in the ignition with trembling hands. A vague but overwhelming fear began to take hold of me. If Daniel was alive, why had he let me carry this enormous debt for 5 years? The streets of Brooklyn during rush hour were chaos, but I felt completely detached from it all. In my head, a slow-motion movie was playing on a loop, piecing together fragmented memories of the last 5 years. I remembered the visits to my in-laws. Why did Martha always demand the money with such harshness? The $30,000 was their retirement savings. They didn't need it immediately. Why did they insist I pay them $500 every month without fail? Their combined Social Security was almost $3,000 a month. Wherever they lived, it was more than enough for 2 frugal old people. What did they need another $500 in cash for every month? To save? Or to support someone? Once, last summer, during a heat wave, I brought them a bag of oranges from Florida. When Martha opened the door, I caught a glimpse inside the apartment. The blinds were completely down. They didn't have air conditioning or the windows open. How could 2 elderly people stand the heat like that, unless they were trying to hide someone else's presence? Mom, Leo is waiting for you. My son's high-pitched voice brought me back to reality. I had arrived at his school's gate. The boy ran towards me, sweating. I hugged him, feeling a knot in my stomach. Leo's father. The day I received the news of Daniel's death, I fainted several times. Martha just kept repeating that he had gone to find a better future for the family. Now that he's dead, we're left with nothing and with debts. You're his wife. You have to take care of it. For the love of my son, so he wouldn't lose his grandparents, I agreed to work tirelessly to pay off the debt. But what if what Mrs. Gable said was true? The thought made me swerve, almost hitting an oncoming delivery bike. Mom, are you okay? Asked Leo, frightened. Yes, sweetie, it's nothing. I'm just a little tired. When we got home, after making dinner and putting my son to bed, I sat in front of the computer. The screen glowed, but I couldn't concentrate. I opened a drawer and took out my expense notebook. The line, pay debt, grandparents, $30,000 was circled in red. I had paid for 58 months. Only 2 were left. If Daniel was alive, it meant I wasn't paying a debt. I was being scammed. I remembered the detail of the limp. Daniel had broken his left ankle in a motorcycle accident in 2018. Suspicion, like an acid, began to eat away at my trust. I needed proof. I picked up the phone and looked for a name in my contacts. Ben was a cousin of mine, a young computer genius. Leah, what's up calling me at this hour? Ben, are you busy? I need a favor. Tell me, cousin, it's something delicate. Do you know anyone who manages the cameras in the tenement where my in-laws live? There was a silence on the other end, the one in Bushwick. I have a friend at the security company that installed them. Why? Did someone steal something from you? Yeah, something like that. I think I dropped my wallet on the stairs. Is there any way you can get me the files from the camera on the staircase between the 4th and 5th floors for the last 3 months? I'll ask tomorrow and let you know. Please, Ben. It's very important. I hung up, my palms soaked in sweat. The arrow had already left the bow. I had just begun my search for the truth. The next afternoon, I met Ben on the patio of a hidden coffee shop on a side street. He arrived on time and took a laptop out of his backpack. "Leah, what's wrong? You're so tense, you look terrible." He looked at me with concern. I forced a smile. "How's it going? Did you get anything?" Ben nodded. "You're in luck. The system saves everything to the cloud." My friend passed me the files. "What day did you say you lost your wallet?" "Put the 5th or 6th of each month, between 1 and 3 inches the morning." Ben typed in silence. "Here it is, the 6th of last month. Look at this." He turned the screen towards me. The image was grainy, black and white. The camera was aimed from the 4th floor landing towards the 5th. The hallway was deserted. The clock read 1:45 and 20 seconds, a.m. A shadow appeared, coming up the stairs. I felt my heart stop. The man was wearing a baggy jacket and a cap pulled down, hiding half his face. He was wearing a mask. "Stop, play it in slow motion." My voice sounded strange. Ben pressed a key. The man climbed the steps, first the right foot, then dragging the left with a slight limp. His left shoulder dipped a little as he put weight on that leg. That way of walking. I covered my mouth to suppress a sob. It was unmistakable. It was Daniel. I stared at the screen. The man reached the door of 504. He didn't knock. He put his hand in his pocket, took out a set of keys, chose one skillfully, and inserted it into the lock. Click. The door opened. He slipped inside and closed it very carefully. "Do you recognize him?" Ben asked cautiously. "Show me the month before." Ben obeyed. On the 6th of the previous month, at the same time, the same person, the same stealth, and the same ease in opening the door. I watched the 3 videos from the last 3 months in a row. The pattern didn't change. The night after I delivered the money, he appeared. Suddenly, I felt nauseous. Who had I been paying for 5 years? I was paying the very man who was hiding there, who had cruelly allowed his wife and son to suffer for a fake debt. "Ben, copy all of this onto a USB drive for me, and not a word to anyone, please." Ben saw the seriousness on my face and nodded. "Don't worry, I won't say anything." I grabbed the USB, clutching it in my hand. This was huge, bigger than the sky falling. I got up and ran out of the coffee shop. Daniel was alive, and he, along with his parents, had orchestrated this charade to exploit me to the bone. When I got home, I locked my bedroom door and sank to the floor. The laptop played the video over and over. I remembered the jacket he was wearing. It was one I had given him myself before he left for North Dakota. Daniel wasn't dead. Why fake his own death? Why use the excuse of a debt to force me to pay? I remembered the day we received the terrible news. My in-laws cried inconsolably, but right after the funeral, they brought up the supposed debt. "Honey, Daniel left for this family. Now that he's gone, we're old and have no income. The $30,000 we gave him is lost. We have to figure out how to fix this." They appealed to my compassion and my sense of responsibility. They knew I would never abandon my husband's parents, and so they turned me into their personal ATM for 5 years. The pain transformed into anger, a rage that burned slowly. Almost $35,000, counting extra money for holidays and gifts. It was my sweat, my tears. I had saved every penny to support the ghost of my husband and his 2 accomplices. I looked at the improvised altar where Daniel's photo still smiled kindly. I wanted to smash it to pieces, but no. Destroying things wouldn't solve anything. I had to stay calm, be smarter than them. "You've played your role as a dead man very well, Daniel," I whispered. "Well, now let me play the naive wife a little longer. But this time, I'll be the director of this play." I opened a drawer and took out a notebook. I began to outline a plan. Step 1. Confirm the identity of the man in the video. Step 2. Investigate the real financial situation of Daniel and his family. Step 3. Find Daniel's hiding place. The hunt would begin tomorrow. I was going to hunt my own dead husband. The next morning, I got up as usual. I made breakfast for Leo, ironed his uniform, took him to school, and then went straight to work. On a sticky note, I started recalculating the figures. Original debt, $30,000. $500 a month. X 60 months equals $30,000. Plus, for holidays, birthdays, and medicine, I always gave something extra. The total amount I had given them in 5 years exceeded $34,000. How it could have changed my life and my son's, and instead, I had thrown it into that bottomless pit on the 5th floor. I sent a message to Ben. Investigate if there are any strange movements in my father-in-law's bank account. I suspect the money I give them isn't used for living expenses or to pay any debt. Ben replied. That's tricky because of privacy laws, but I can try an indirect approach. Give me some time. I put the phone away. I needed to get closer. An idea crossed my mind. If he came home to pick up the money I had just delivered, did he need it for something, or was he living off it? That afternoon, I left work early and went by my in-laws' tenement. I parked the scooter and sat on a bench, pretending to rest. Well, look who it is, Leah. A shrill voice called out. It was Adele, the neighbor from the 4th floor. Adele. I was just passing by and went up to see how the grandparents were doing. Adele sat next to me. You're such a good woman, honey, paying your husband's debt for so long. By the way, are they okay lately? Because every night I hear a terrible racket upstairs. A racket? What kind of racket? Well, late at night, I hear heavy footsteps on my ceiling, like a young man's, and sometimes I hear the toilet flush at 2 or 3 inches the morning. My heart sped up. It must be my father-in-law. With his bad leg, he walks more clumsily, I improvised. Adele made a face. What bad leg? And another weird thing, those two are tighter than anyone, always complaining they went broke because of your husband. But lately, every night I see your mother-in-law go down with a huge black trash bag. The other day, out of curiosity, I looked and saw pizza boxes and beer cans sticking out. What are 2 old folks eating that stuff for? I was stunned. Pizza boxes, beer cans. They were Daniel's favorite things. And you didn't ask her? Of course, I asked. She said they were offerings she puts out for the deceased. What an excuse. Who puts out that many offerings? Adele's story was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Daniel wasn't just going home for money. He was probably living there, spending the money I earned with the sweat of my brow. 2 days later, I decided to act. I went to Macy's and bought a high-end foot massager. I chose 8 p.m. for my visit. I climbed the 5 floors carrying the cumbersome box. In front of door 504, I strained my ears. Inside, I could hear the TV and voices. Eat, son, eat while it's hot. Your wife just brought this month's money, so spend without fear. It was Martha's voice. Don't worry, Mom. I have everything under control. When she finishes paying, I'll disappear for a while. My foolish wife has bought the whole story. She hasn't missed a single month. That voice. I froze. A deep, slightly hoarse voice. It was Daniel's voice. My blood boiled. I wanted to break down the door and rush in, but reason stopped me. I knocked. Knock, knock. The voices stopped immediately. Who is it? My father-in-law asked from inside. Dad, it's Leah. I brought you a foot massage machine. A long time passed before I heard shuffling slippers. The door creaked open. This time it was Arthur blocking the entrance. At this hour, honey. Why didn't you call? I was leaving work, passed by Macy's, and saw this machine that's great for your arthritis. Arthur stood in my way. No, just leave it there. The house is a mess. I'm not a stranger, Dad. Besides, I wanted to come in and light a candle for Daniel. My father-in-law's face fell. What nonsense are you talking about? Go on, go home. Just then, from the back bedroom, a cough was heard. A dry, short, man's cough. My father-in-law jumped. Your mother's coughing again. Go on, get out of here. He snatched the box from my hands and slammed the door shut. I was left alone in the hallway. That cough wasn't Martha's. Daniel's presence in that house was confirmed. The next morning, I got a call from Ben. Leah, I found something interesting. I went to see him. He showed me an Excel file on his laptop. I've checked the transaction history. Their Social Security checks arrive on time every month, but they haven't withdrawn a single dollar in years. They have tens of thousands of dollars accumulated. They don't take out money, I asked, stunned. Nothing, only deposits. So, what do they live on? The pizza, the beer, the things the neighbor mentioned. All that costs money. Cash, I said aloud. Besides my money, someone else must be giving them cash. Exactly. and that person can only be Daniel. He doesn't make transfers to avoid leaving a digital trail. He brings them the money by hand when he sneaks in at night, so they're not in need. They have a fortune that their son gives them, and still, they've been squeezing you for every last cent. I clenched my fists. This truth was even crueler than if they were poor. They were rich thanks to their son's dirty money, but their greed led them to steal the sweat from my brow. I suspect Daniel is involved in something illegal. The money he's making is not small. Can you find out what he's doing? That's harder, but I'll try to follow the trail through his old contacts. Thanks, Ben. Daniel was hiding somewhere, involved in shady business, and using his parents and a fake debt to exploit his own family out of pure greed. After seeing Ben, I stopped by a copy shop. I was still missing one piece, Daniel's death. I remembered the day we received the urn. The representative? A man named Mr. Klein said Daniel had an accident and they had to cremate him urgently. The family couldn't go to North Dakota to identify the body. My in-laws agreed, saying it was better for their son to rest in peace. I decided to call Mr. Klein. Hello, Mr. Klein. This is Leah, Daniel's wife. Oh, hello, Leah. How can I help you? I'm applying for widow's benefits, and the insurance company is asking for the original coroner's report and the death certificate from North Dakota. Could you help me get them? That's very difficult. It's been 5 years. Those papers don't exist anymore. Besides, everything was done through a humanitarian channel at the time. The documentation was very basic. Mr. Klein stammered. Please, try. I'll compensate you for your trouble. Well, I'll see what I can do. Mr. Klein hung up hastily. His attitude confirmed my suspicions. He had likely collaborated in falsifying the documents. I looked south, towards the small town in Pennsylvania where Daniel's family was from. The urn with his ashes was in the family plot. I had to open that urn. I called my mother-in-law. Mom, this weekend I want to take Leo to the town to put flowers on his father's grave. I've paid off the whole debt and I want to go and give thanks. It's a long trip. Why are you going? Martha said curtly. I can't help it, Mom. I dreamed about Daniel last night and he asked me to. I'm very worried. Old people are often superstitious. Fine, go if you want, but go and come back quickly. Yes, I know. I hung up. The trip to Pennsylvania would be the key. In that cold ceramic urn, the whole truth would be revealed. Daniel, you hide from your debts. You make your wife pay them for you, but you won't be able to escape justice. That weekend, under an intense yellow Pennsylvania sun, I took Leo on my old scooter down a road that wound through fields of corn. We left at dawn to reach the town before noon. Leo was excited, talking nonstop, asking about the tractors, about the grandparents he never knew. My son's innocent laughter was like knife stabs in my heart. The purer he was, the heavier the guilt of the adults. I didn't dare tell him the real purpose of our trip. For him, it was a visit to his father's town. For me, it was a trip to find the evidence that would unmask his cruel father. When we arrived in the town, several relatives greeted us warmly. My uncle-in-law, the one who took care of the cemetery, came out to help us with our bags. What a joy, Leah. It's been so long. Leo is a little man now. He's just like his father. That innocent comment hurt me. Just like the man who was hiding, the one who in 5 years hadn't sent him so much as a piece of candy. I smiled and greeted everyone, trying to seem calm. I placed some flowers on the church altar and lit a candle. The smoke stung my eyes. With your permission, I'm going to take Leo to the cemetery to put flowers on his father's grave and tell him I've fulfilled my obligation. I said it loudly so everyone could hear. My uncle nodded. You do right, honey. Daniel will rest more peacefully. Stay for lunch and go this afternoon. It's too hot now. No, thank you, Uncle. I'd rather go now. We have to get back to the city this afternoon so the boy can go to school tomorrow. I declined his offer. I had to execute my plan at noon, when everyone would be eating and taking a nap. I took Leo by the hand, and we went to the cemetery at the end of the town. The sun beat down, but I didn't feel the heat. In my purse, besides the flowers, I had a small hammer, a screwdriver, and a micro camera with a fully charged battery. The town cemetery was silent under the shade of the cypress trees. The graves were clean and tidy. Daniel's niche was in the third row, with a shiny black granite headstone and a smiling photo of him. I placed the flowers. Leo helped me arrange them. "Dad, it's Leo. I came to see you. Help me get good grades." The boy clasped his hands and his childish voice echoed in the silence. I looked at him and my eyes filled with tears. "Leo, honey, why don't you go play over there for a bit while I talk to Dad for a moment?" "Okay, Mom." Leo obediently ran to a patch of grass to look for grasshoppers. I was left alone in front of the niche. I looked around. Not a soul. At this hour, the whole town was at home. I took a deep breath to calm myself. With trembling hands, I turned on the micro camera hidden in the lapel of my jacket. I had to record the whole process as evidence. I approached the niche. The urn was behind a small glass door locked with a key. My uncle had given me a copy on the day of the burial in case I ever wanted to clean it. He never imagined that key would open the door to such a raw truth. I put the key in the lock. The click sounded dry and metallic. The small glass door opened. The earth-brown ceramic urn appeared before me. Engraved on it were the name Daniel Garcia and the dates. I picked it up with my hands. It was cold. Not the cold of death, but the cold of a lie. I put it on the ground and took out the hammer and screwdriver. The lid was sealed with silicone. I had to pry it carefully to avoid breaking it. Sweat ran down my forehead. My heart pounded like a drum. If someone appeared right then, they would take me for a crazy grave desecrator. Crack! A piece of silicone broke off. I held my breath and continued to pry. After a few minutes of effort, the lid gave way. With a final push, it flew off. I held my breath and looked inside. Empty, not entirely. At the bottom was a layer of dust and several pieces of construction gravel, the size of a child's fist. There were no ashes, no bone fragments, nothing that resembled the remains of an incinerated human body. My legs gave out. I sank to the ground, staring at those inert stones. Even though I had expected it, seeing the truth with my own eyes was a shock. For 5 years, the whole family had been venerating a handful of rubble. For 5 years, my son and I had prayed to some rocks. It was a macabre joke of infinite cruelty. I took the camera and recorded the inside of the urn, focusing on each stone, each speck of dust. As I recorded, I spoke in a choked but firm voice. Today, May 15th, 2024, I, Leah Martin, wife of Daniel Garcia, have opened my husband's cinerary urn in his hometown cemetery. Inside, there are no ashes, only stones. This is the proof that Daniel's death was a fraud. When I finished, I put the stones back in the urn. I closed it and sealed it with a strong glue I had brought. I did everything quickly, leaving no trace that the urn had been opened. I returned it to its niche and closed the small glass door. Everything returned to its normal appearance, but inside me was a raging sea. "Mom, I caught a giant grasshopper!" shouted Leo from a distance. I quickly wiped away my tears. I straightened my clothes and smiled to greet him. "That's great, champ. Let's go now. It's too sunny." I took his hand and we left the cemetery. Behind me, the fake grave still stood, a monument to my husband's family's deceit. But it wouldn't stand for much longer. I swore it to myself. We ate something quick at my uncle's house and left for the city with the excuse that Leo had a stomachache. On the way, I stopped at a roadside motel to rest. In reality, I needed a quiet place to review the video and think about my next step. In the room with Leo asleep, I connected to the Wi-Fi and started searching Facebook for Daniel's old contacts. I remembered he had a group of friends he always went out for beers with. The closest was Vince, nicknamed the Vulture. On the day of the funeral, Vince cried uncontrollably. He even took my hand and told me not to worry, that he would take care of me and the boy. But then he disappeared. I searched his name, found his profile. His profile picture was of a large motorcycle. I went to his wall. He constantly posted pictures of parties, in bars and clubs. I reviewed his latest posts. One photo caught my attention, Vince raising a mug of beer on a patio. On his left wrist was a watch with a metal band and a blue face. I zoomed in on the photo. My heart leaped. A Seiko 5 Sports with a blue dial. It was my wedding anniversary gift to Daniel. I remembered it perfectly because I had our initials, L and D. engraved on the back. And more importantly, the metal band had a deep scratch near the clasp from a motorcycle fall Daniel had. In Vince's photo, though blurry, that scratch was visible. Why was Vince wearing Daniel's watch? Mr. Klein, the intermediary, told me Daniel had lost all his belongings in the accident, and now the watch was on his best friend's wrist. There was only one possibility. Daniel had given it to him, or Daniel was with him. I kept looking at his photos. Vince often posted from an industrial park in Queens. The pieces started to fit. The money transfers to my father-in-law's account also came from that area. Vince was there. Vince was the accomplice, the one helping Daniel launder the money and contact his family, and Daniel was probably hiding near where Vince lived or worked. I took screenshots of all the evidence. I now had the most important lead. Vince the Vulture was the key to finding Daniel's lair. When I got back to the city, I sent all the information about Vince to Ben. Investigate this guy urgently. His name is Vince. He's Daniel's best friend. I suspect he's hiding him. Find out what he does, where he lives, where he hangs out. Ben, with his computer skills, didn't take long to pull up Vince's history. 2 days later, he met me at a cafe. Leah, this Vince guy is bad news. He works as a manager at a mechanic shop in an industrial park in Queens. But the shop is a front for a loan sharking business. No wonder he has so much money for parties, I nodded. I've tracked his phone's location. This is a bit illegal, don't tell anyone. He has a very strange movement pattern. During the day, he's at the shop. At night, he parties. But around 11 p.m., he always drives to an abandoned warehouse at the back of the industrial park. He stays there for an hour and then goes home. An abandoned warehouse. My eyes lit up. Do you think Daniel is there? It's very likely. The area is deserted, perfect for hiding. Also, I've checked the traffic cameras in the area and saw that Vince's car often carries bags of food and other supplies when he goes in that direction. It's him. Daniel is in that warehouse. I clenched my hands, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. The prey was in my sights. Ben, can you do me one last favor? I want to go there. I want to catch him red-handed. It's very dangerous, Leah. These are mafia types. They're dangerous. You're a woman alone. If something happens to you, why don't we call the police? I shook my head. Not yet. We have no proof that Daniel is alive. If we call the police, they'll just do a routine check, and he could get away. I need to record his voice, a picture of him, something that proves it's him and that he admits everything. Only then will we have irrefutable proof. Ben sighed. All right, I'll go with you. I have some gadgets that can help us, and I know some self-defense, but you have to promise me you'll do exactly as I say. No recklessness. I promise. Thanks, Ben. We started planning the nighttime hunt. The best time was the following night when, according to his routine, Vince would go to the warehouse to deliver supplies. I went home and looked at our wedding photo. Daniel's smile seemed fake and disgusting. You hide very well, Daniel, but you forgot one thing. No lie lasts forever. Tomorrow night, I will unmask you. I hugged Leo and kissed his forehead. Don't worry, my love. Mom is about to get justice for you. We won't have to keep paying for that traitor. The final battle was about to begin, and I was ready. The next afternoon, I left Leo at my mother's house, telling her I had to work all night at the office. My mother, feeling sorry for me for working so much, told me not to worry about the boy. At 8 p.m., Ben picked me up in an old car he had borrowed. We were dressed in dark clothes, with caps and masks, like amateur detectives. Take this. Ben handed me a device that looked like a pen. It's a high-quality recorder, and this is a GPS tracker. Put it in your pocket just in case. The car left the city and headed south on the highway. We entered the industrial park in Queens. At that hour, it was deserted. We drove to an area of abandoned warehouses with weeds growing everywhere. We have to leave the car here and continue on foot, said Ben. He turned off the engine and the lights. We got out in silence. The darkness was total, broken only by the sound of crickets and the wind. We walked, crouched, staying close to a rusty fence, towards a large warehouse that stood in the middle of a vacant lot. According to the GPS, Vince is approaching. We need to hide, whispered Ben. We hid behind some rusty barrels about 20 yards from the main door. At 11:15, we saw the lights of a motorcycle. The engine noise grew louder. It was him. The motorcycle stopped in front of the warehouse. The man took off his helmet. It was Vince the Vulture. He was carrying 2 large plastic bags. He walked up to the metal roll-up door and kicked it 3 times, following a rhythm. Hard, soft, hard. The door lifted with a screech. A yellowish light spilled out from inside. From the darkness, a man emerged. He was wearing a dirty tank top, shorts, and flip-flops. His hair was long and messy, and a scruffy beard covered half his face. He was tanner and thinner, but those eyes, that nose, that slightly stooped back, there was no doubt. It was Daniel, my husband, the father of my son, the man I had mourned for 5 years. He was there, in the flesh, in front of me. Although I had prepared for it, seeing him with my own eyes took my breath away. I had to bite my lip until it bled to keep from screaming. "Did you bring everything?" Daniel's voice was hoarse and sharp. "Everything. Beer, food, smokes, new clothes." "You're living like a king in here," Vince said, handing him the bags. "A king, my ass. This place is an oven and the mosquitoes are eating me alive." "I'm about to go crazy," Daniel complained, taking the bags and turning around. Vince rolled the motorcycle inside and lowered the door. "Let's go. We need to get closer to here," Ben whispered to me. We moved silently to the warehouse wall. We found a crack through which light and sound escaped. I put my eye to it. Inside, in a corner, was Daniel's nest. A mattress on the floor, a plastic table, a fan, and a small TV. The 2 men sat down and opened some beers. I turned on the recorder and pressed it against the crack. The conversation reached my ears with brutal clarity. "Drink up. It's cold," said Vince. Daniel took a long swig and burped. "So good. How's everything going? When are you planning to get out of here?" "I guess in a month. I'm waiting for my parents to collect the last payment. My wife is about to finish." What a fool. She hasn't missed a single month. Punctual as a clock. I admire my folks' acting. They start crying poor and she swallows the whole thing. The truth is, your wife's a saint, and you're a bastard. "Aren't you afraid of karma?" Vince said. "What karma?" "I went to North Dakota to make money for them, but I had the bad luck of getting into gambling and owed a local crew a lot of money. If I didn't escape, they'd kill me. I had to fake my death so they wouldn't find my family. So the $30,000 debt, your parents never lost anything?" Daniel let out a laugh. "I came back with nothing, and with gambling debts here too. If I didn't get the money from my wife, what was I going to eat? My folks' Social Security wasn't enough. With the excuse of the debt, Leah has worked herself to the bone. But you're making money now. You could support the whole family." "Yeah, I'm making money, and plenty of it, but I like taking it from her. Why not? Besides, it gives my folks an excuse to complain to the neighbors, and no one suspects the money I give them. If they suddenly get rich, people would talk. You're a calculating son of a... And your wife and kid? You're just abandoning them?" Daniel was silent for a moment. "To hell with them. Leah is young and pretty. She won't have a problem finding guys. I did her a favor. Now she can rebuild her life. I'm taking her money so she's too busy to suspect anything. I hate her moralizing, though sometimes I think about it. I was at home like a king, with food on the table and a warm bed, and now I'm here in this hellhole. Be careful. The other day, your wife showed up unexpectedly with a massage machine. I think she suspects something. If you stay there, one day you'll find the cops at the door. Just hold on a little longer. You'll get away to Mexico, and it's over." "You're the biggest bastard I've ever known, Daniel," Vince said, though his tone was joking. "Come on, drink up and shut up. If I don't look out for myself, who will?" I turned off the recorder. It was enough. The man I had loved was truly dead. The one in there was a monster. I gave Ben a signal to leave. "Are you okay?" he asked me. "I'm better than ever." I dried my tears, my voice firm. "Let's go. Tomorrow will be his end." The next morning, we went to the office of a lawyer Ben knew. I gave her all the evidence, the recording, the video of the empty urn, the security camera footage. The lawyer, upon hearing the recording, became furious. "This is aggravated fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy." With the amount scammed and the aggravating factors of abuse of trust and faking a death, Daniel and his parents are facing prison time. I want to press charges. I want them to pay and return every last cent to me, I said with determination. I'll help you, but first, we need to coordinate with the police to arrest them. If they find out, Daniel could flee. The lawyer called the NYPD. With such compelling evidence, an operation was organized for that very night. One team would go to the warehouse for Daniel, another to the tenement for his parents, and a third for Vince. I would wait at the precinct. At 2 a.m., the inspector's phone rang. Target apprehended at the warehouse. Accomplice is in custody. The two elderly individuals are on their way. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling empty and exhausted. Justice, though slow, does arrive. The curtain had fallen on a 5-year charade. The next morning, I saw Daniel through the glass of the interrogation room. He was broken, handcuffed, with a lost look in his eyes. When they played the recording for him, he broke down and confessed everything. His parents, in another room, cried and blamed it on their parental love, but the law doesn't forgive those who use affection to defraud. Vince was also arrested for conspiracy and for his loan sharking business. The case shocked the public. 3 months later, the trial took place. Daniel was sentenced to 12 years in prison for aggravated fraud and document forgery. His parents, due to their age, received probation but were ordered to pay back all the money. Leaving the courthouse, I looked up at the blue sky. The bright sun dispelled the shadows that had clouded my life for 5 years. I had recovered my money, my honor, and most importantly, my freedom. I sold the small apartment, and with the restitution money and my savings, I bought a new apartment, small but full of light. One afternoon, picking Leo up from school, he told me, "Mom, I got an A on my math test today. That's my champ. To celebrate, I'm treating you to fried chicken." Yay! We walked hand in hand down a tree-lined street. The afternoon breeze carried the scent of linden trees. I looked at my son and smiled, happy. The painful past was locked away behind prison walls. Before us lay a new future, bright and peaceful. I gave a silent thanks for the past storms. Thanks to them, I had discovered how strong I was and had learned that true happiness is not about blind sacrifice, but about knowing how to fight to protect what you love.